Good morning, guys. Well, this morning I was ranking and rating Guild Wars 2 Mysteries. I don't know if you guys missed that. This evening, I'm going to recap yesterday's big stream, oh, sorry, the day before's big stream on the Echovald Forest, give you my takes, a bit of a review, and sort of list out some of maybe the trivia and things you missed from the stream, even if you saw it live. Footage in the background will, of course, be the stream itself, so plenty of Echovald goodness, and enjoy this while it still feels fresh. I'm sure I'll be reusing this footage a lot as we go forwards. First, just to review the presentation, I think it was really good. In fact, way better than the Xingji stream which we'd had earlier. If you remember on Xingji, the devs were struggling with their keybinds. They were toggling in and out of dev commands quite a lot. They were, you know, procking events that they weren't meant to be procking, and they were, like, talking over each other. It was a little bit messy. This time, though, I thought went really clean. It was much closer to the kind of, like, map exploration and preview tour that I really enjoy. I always think about, and I mentioned this in the Xingji stream before, but I think about back when Guild Wars 2 was coming out and they did those convention demos where they'd run you through Queensdale and they'd run you through the Blaze Ridge Steps and they'd run you through Divinity's Reach, and they did that with a really good flow explaining game systems and stuff we were seeing. Well, this stream on Echovald Forest here, 10 years later, felt a lot like that to me. They had a really good audio balance. Like, right before this stream came out, I went and played the Echovald Forest, sort of did a big tour of it as it exists in the first game. And one of the things that struck me was how great the game sounded. Like those mysterious monsters squawking, and their voice echoes and carries through all these distant trees that you can hardly see out in the gloom. To be fair, I probably had even more fun because there's a mod for Guild Wars 1 that exists now, which fixes the audio. Just so you guys know, Guild Wars 1 audio has been broken since Windows XP moved on. If you go to the GW1 subreddit, you can find a mod that, like, re-implements how it's supposed to sound. So on my little stream thing where I'm going through Echovald, I'm listening to stuff that I haven't for years and years and years, like properly balanced and set up in a 3D space. But so the audioscape back then was damn fantastic. Comes to Guild Wars 2 in this presentation, they had a really good balance of, like, listening to the devs speaking their commentary, and you can really hear the Echovald in the background. I don't know how many other people really got a kick out of that, but I definitely did. Because to me, the real thing ArenaNet needs to nail is vibe and, like, tone and just the general aesthetic that they had back in the original game. Now, we do have this weird thing where the lore is like the forest is depetrifying or is in a process of depetrifying. So does it have to be quite so gloomy? Does it have to be so dark? Does it have to be so striking? And I feel like it's not quite as striking. I'll come back to that in just a moment. As to the presentation, yeah, they hid parts of their UI so that people on Reddit wouldn't stitch all the maps together. When I say people on Reddit, I think I just mean that Shaman, right? Wasn't it Shaman that did that? They had their keybinds properly set up right now. They already had dev mode on so that when they're playing a Catalyst, they don't get blown up. And yeah, we got to see a little bit more Catalyst gameplay, and there was a little bit of a hint maybe as to some of the balance coming up. I'm sure we'll hear more about that with Beta 4 news a little bit down the line, so I wouldn't linger on that too much. But basically, it looks like the Dragon Jade Orb is a bit easier to manipulate now, so hooray. And they had one person talking while the other person was playing. It all just flowed really, really well. The one thing I think that they kind of still missed out on is we started the stream on a skiff, which was quite cool, but I wish they'd done a bit of fishing in the Echovald Forest. You know, just take a second, pull the camera in, and let us experience some tranquility of fishing in one of these rivers or whatever. It's going to be one of the big fantasies once the X-Pack comes out, right? Fishing is a big part of the experience. And just in general, yeah, you guys know me. I like to keep the camera quite close to my character. I like to really get that sense of scale. But, you know, they were playing it like normal players with the camera zoomed out and max FOV as far away, which I do think is a little bit less immersive and doesn't show it off quite as well. Oh, and I suppose one other thing too, we're not really getting monster showcases. Like, one of the big reasons I like expansions is monsters. Like, I think about all the new creatures that were in Heart of Thorns. I think about all the new creatures like the Hydra and the Sand Elvers and the Choya and stuff when we got to POF. Like, that's a huge part of the experience for me. Is it not for you guys as well? I want to see, like, their death animations. You know, when a Choya died, it exploded into sliced up fruit. What do these new creatures die like? What do they fight like? And I think on the Xingji stream, we got a goodish amount of that. You know, we got to look at the Naga. We got to look at the Kappa. There wasn't so much of that here. In fact, you guys remember the teaser trailer I did a video about a couple of days ago? That showed, like, this Warden/Juggernaut thing. And I thought, well, we're going to see that in this stream, surely. Well, we don't. You know, we see little glimpses at some enemies. There are some Jade constructs that kind of look like Watchwork creations, but infused with Dragon Jade. But they never really get very close to them. My theory about those, for what it's worth, is they've confirmed the Aether Blades are in the forest. So my theory is, in fact, about the Aether Blades and the whole expansion, is that Mytrin has led the Aetherblades to Cantha because she wants to utilize Dragon Jade to augment her technologies. You know, you got to remember that the Aetherblades are technologists, and they were involved in the creation of the Watchwork stuff and so on with Scarlet. So I think that we're kind of looking at Aetherblade new sort of creatures there, and it will probably be tangential somehow to Mechlor. But we don't get close. You know, we can't really see them. We didn't really get close to any of the Rotwallows either, or whatever else was new around. There weren't any Oni. There weren't any Dredge. It was mostly just very much a zoomed out sort of environment art showcase, and that is really how I would describe that. Because here's the thing, they disabled a ton of content. The map felt really empty. Now, I'm seeing the community response to this. I think people are a bit underwhelmed by this stream because of this emptiness. Now, they mentioned about 100 times on the commentary that the map would look empty of content. We could explore the environment, and that's what they were doing, but it would look empty because they had disabled a bunch of content to avoid spoilers. Now, I know what some of you guys, the cynics out there, are thinking, oh, it's not that, it's just that they've not built it. I really do think they've built a ton of content, and I really do think that they disabled it for spoilers, and I'll explain why. First of all, look at the points of interest. Now, a point of interest you could just say is like a little waypoint on a map, and it doesn't mean anything, and sometimes ArenaNet have done that, but in general, in expansion quality maps, if there's a point of interest, there's something to see, something to do, someone to speak to, something to interact with or whatever, right? And here's the thing, this map has 45 POIs on it. We obviously don't get to see all of them on the stream, but the counter when they unlock one is 45. As far as I know, that represents more POIs than any expansion map we've had. Someone in the YouTube comments was mentioning the Desolation had like 41 or something. The Desolation's got a good amount, but it really does look like it's on a very big scale. So you might say, well, look, it's a big map, but that doesn't mean it's dense with content. And you might be right, but I'm not so cynical. Consider this, guys. When they say the spoiler argument, think about like Living World releases, like with Corner or whatever. What they did in Corner was a ton of main characters appear phased on the map. Like, isn't Ritlock a heart vendor on that map? And you can meet Goric out there on that map. They actually mainline a lot of these characters and integrate them into the environment very heavily. And that was something that was met to significant applause. I would like to see them do more in the expansion maps too. And think about the patch immediately following with Jahai, where they implemented that Basenji tech, where you could actually have an NPC following you around. What was it? Blish would follow us in the overworld. That was so cool. Now, if they're doing all that stuff in the expansion, which I hope they would, I would hope they would learn from all those amazing things they did through Season 4, and that's now integrated in the next X-Pack. If they're doing that, then, you know, they might consider it to be a bit revelatory to find out that Malik is in this map, to find out that Logan is in this map, but he's injured or whatever, and so on and so on and so on. And they don't want it flashing up on map objectives, and I think that might be, honestly, why they have disabled a good amount of stuff. Or what if, like most of these empty buildings we go to and roads we go to, what if a lot of the population there are wardens and they look a lot like Sylvari now or something like that? And again, it's like, okay, that's pretty telling of some big stuff. What if it's all deep sea dragon influence? Because really, we've seen so little of that too. What if there's a bunch of salt sprays and draconic stuff going on because of whatever Kunavang's been doing over the years? These are all things that might be a lot in the map and they don't want you seeing any of it. The other thing is probably the meta event, which is probably the bigger of the two things actually. And that's if they don't want you seeing the meta story, you know, let's say Logan's running along the lanes and stuff because it's such a big meta, they disable all those events, and now all of a sudden the map feels quite empty. But I quite like that. I like the idea that it's empty because a lot of the meta stuff's been disabled. Why? Because that represents a shift back towards the Heart of Thorn style of metas. Not the Path of Fire style where they just kind of put like some stuff in, but fully integrated into a lot of the map. Big rewards, lots of, you know, progress to go through. Drizzlewood style is probably the best contemporary example. In fact, a lot of the Icebreed Saga did pretty good metas. They did have that post a few months back where they did talk a little bit about this. And so, yeah, if culling away a lot of the meta means the map feels kind of empty, I sort of get it. But it did harm the stream. You know, I had someone in chat saying, you know, if it's gonna look like this, why are they showing it at all? Personally, I think it's good press. I'm really happy to have stuff to talk to you guys about and make videos on. But I do get what people mean. Like, at one point, we go to House Zuhelzer, the old main capital big town from Guild Wars 1. I shouldn't use the phrase capital because that's not even the engine term. The big town, the big central hub place. And it looked just like it did in Guild Wars 1, which is great. I mean, they matched the layout super well. I think a lot of people really freaked out with excitement there. To me, it was kind of a weird one because, you know, I already know ArenaNet's really good at recreating those vistas and those experiences. My first big mind blow for that was when I was in the Dredgehaunt Cliffs and I saw the Granite Citadel in Guild Wars 2, which looks exactly like its predecessor location. So maybe I've had that experience one too many times, but if you wanted to go to House Zuhelzer in Guild Wars 2, I mean, it's there, but again, it's very empty, so you only get like the most shallow tour. What was kind of cool is them then using the mounts to demonstrate you can climb up. Obviously, in the original game, you had basically no opportunity to climb whatsoever, and now we have sky scales and springers and so on, and you know, they really climb around up there. I do wonder once End of Dragon comes out how much content will be in such big, sort of weird places. One thing I think POF did actually really quite well is the treasure hunting kits and stuff, so maybe we can do an equivalent gathering for Ambrite or truffles or something, even in weird places like that. That'd be pretty interesting. So some of the other locations we saw was, I think first they started up around Lake Lutgardis, the Lutgardis Conservatory, and we were actually on the water. I think we started on a skiff. And again, I loved that. I thought that was really cool that they started the stream on a skiff. Quite inspired. Again, it would have just been nice to do a bit of fishing at the end of the stream or something, right? We saw a place called Mori Village. Now, Mori Village is a Tengu village. It kind of appears very briefly in the teaser. And basically, the revelation, the lore here is that the Tengu have flourished in the Echovald after the Ministry of Purity stuff went on. And now they're a big faction in this area of the world. And yes, there's all these beautiful new varieties of Tengu that we can interact with. There was another village later as well with Tengu in it too. That was Kinkaishi Village at a place called the Kinkaishi Basin. Now, this was weird to me. See, in Guild Wars 1, Kinkaishi, I knew that as basically a mountain range between the Echovald Forest and the Jade Sea. You have this mountain range, and Mount Kinkai was one of the maps, one of the explorable maps. I did a lot of speed clears there when I was fast faction farming back in the days. Fond memories indeed. I used to do the South Lane, and I knew the AI quite well, and I used to freak people out by tanking in weird ways because, you know, I knew in hard mode you'd never get more than 3 aggro, and it was fine. Anyway, that was all cool, but it wasn't really Echovald to me. It was the region between Echovald, and if anything, it was actually declared in Guild Wars 1 as a Luxon environment. So here it is, and also it was a mountain range, yet here we are in the Kinkaishi Basin. I mean, I suppose there were some lowland areas there. There was like a kind of a lake place that you could swim out into in the original game. I think there were some pop-up groups of Naga and stuff there. So maybe maybe I'm overthinking this and it was just sort of a shallow area. But that's now included in the Echovald Wilds map as far as Guild Wars 2 is concerned. And we get a second little village. We also learned on the stream that the Jade Brotherhood are going to be a big faction in the forest. There's a whole region called the Brotherhood Woodlands. Looks like they're going to be a big part of the meta. So I'm wondering, based on this, and again, we didn't really get to see much as far as the Jade Brotherhood concerned. Like their iconic appearance from the original game and stuff, because so much was disabled. But here's what I'm wondering now. Since they've decided to put the Jade Brotherhood, there were 2 thug factions, guys. There's like a mafia-style faction, that's the Jade Brotherhood, and there were also the Amfar, and they were like street thugs, and you know, petty criminals from like the Undersea. They were all in Kaineng before, and now they've revealed that the Jade Brotherhood are in the forest, and the Kurziks are basically gone, which was confirmed on the official website, by the way, basically. So does that mean that the Amfar are now in the Jade Sea? I mean, I kind of get they might do that. I kind of don't want them to do that because that's like that parity, that's like that balance, that's that formula. I don't like to see formula too much. But, I mean, maybe that's what they'll do, you know, and we'll get a lot of Jade Brotherhood content here, and on the alternative map, it'll be those guys. So we'll see what they want to do with that. Another cool moment I know for a lot of people. Now, if you're watching my videos, you already know about this. I mentioned it on the previous stream where it was hiding in the background. But the devs actually stopped to show off the Dragon Jade waypoints. So I guess what probably happened here is they didn't want us to see it too much on the previous stream. Then they realized the community had found them, so they thought, well, we'll do a proper little showcase and actual look at them. So yeah, you can see the form of waypoint that the Canthans have invented for themselves, completely without the help of the Asura. And this is kind of suggestive of the fact there really aren't any Asura around there at all, right? Or if there are, they were cut off years ago after the Asura gate blew up at the start of Eye of the North. And then there was only one gate around there. But so they've got their own waypoints, and they give us a little bit of a look at it. It does look gorgeous. It's incredible. What I really want, though, now is the UI art. You know, you walk over to a waypoint, and it will pop up above your mini-map. You know, the unlock, like a point of interest would pop up or whatever. The waypoint comes up. It's got that, like, square icon for the waypoint. That still looks the same. It still looks like an even a sewer and waypoint, even though they're made of dragon jade. So I hope they change that. They could just recolor the blue bit in the middle into green or something. I love stuff like that. I think that will really draw Cantha apart and make it feel like a sort of a fresh experience. I know it's like such a shallow thing, but think about like in Guild Wars 1, when you would go to a new campaign, they'd change all the icons on the map, wouldn't they? So you get like new mission art on the UI. It's a similar thing. I really want to see them do it. But yeah, they indulge people on that. And then they spent a lot of time teasing. So most of the dev commentary on this one wasn't that interesting. And, you know, I don't think they're wrong to do this or anything. But it was basically them explaining they've culled a lot of content out and sort of complimenting the art design. Now, that's mostly what they did. We did get some lore sections and snippets. Some of it is kind of rehashes of what we knew and a little bit more pushing of the boundaries. But one thing they did spend some time talking about was teasing a doorway. So I actually think we saw two, didn't we? We saw like 2 portal map exits or map entrances. And in particular, they ended the stream at some big building. And they were saying, oh, what's through the door? What's going on? And I have no idea what it is, really. And in fact, it's kind of hard for me to even be really excited about the mystery because there's nothing to latch onto. It's not like we see a nameplate of a character we recognize behind there or something. It's just like a building, so they're obviously excited about it, but I have no idea why necessarily. I mean, we have 4 confirmed maps, right? So you might just say, oh, it's an entrance to the Jade Sea, but it's like a building. It looks like they're teasing at an interior. And why would they be going out of their way to say, oh, here's the entrance to the Jade Sea? You would expect probably the entrance to the Jade Sea would be like an open valley and you'd actually see the environment back there. So I don't know, maybe they're just teasing about the Jade Sea. There are some other theories. One idea is it might be a strike mission location. You know, with the studio saying, well, look, strike missions are going to be a part of the story. They're going to come back with CMs and all that kind of stuff afterwards. Maybe, and if you look at how strikes worked in the Icebreed Saga, they were like these little extra rooms that you entered behind portals. But the thing is, strike mission portals don't look like regular map portals. They look different. They're like that really deep blue. So you might say it's not a strike mission. But then you might say they're only that really super striking deep blue because they were there for the Icebreed Saga. We're not in the Icebreed Saga now, so they're going to change it back. So it is a strike room. I don't know. It's up to you guys on that. Another theory, too, is that it's a guild hall back there. Like, people really want an Echovald Forest guild hall. And that is how it feels, you know. It is like when you're in Verdant Brink. You go to the top left, you see that mysterious portal. It's because there's a guild hall there. We did get 2 halls in Heart of Thorns and only 1 in POF. The thing is, they've only done press for 1 guild hall, guys. And it strikes me that, you know, they delayed the release of this expansion. I think they were trying to take a really nice, narrow focus on this and make sure the stuff they aim for can be really rich and really detailed and really deep. I don't know if they're just going to throw wantonly new guild halls on there and then not tell you about them. So, not sure I really buy it. Oh, and it's also, remember the teaser? There was that big interior room that looked a bit like a jumping puzzle. It's not that place either, because as you've probably seen on the footage in the background at this point, they actually did go in there. They very briefly touched on that place, so it was pretty gorgeous. They never played it. We have to go do that for ourselves. That was actually a really good bit of the stream, because it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, go do it. And then they said no, and I thought, oh, sweet. I want to do it now as soon as the X-Pack comes out. So, who knows about the mysterious room, I suppose. Closing down the video here, just a bit of a discussion about how it looks compared to Guild Wars 1. I would say the forest in Guild Wars 2 is definitely more technically proficient, right? It's rendered more beautifully, there's better texture quality, the models are more detailed, you know, the lighting and shadows all look a lot better. That's kind of a given, considering this is over a decade later, technologically speaking, so it's gonna look better. But there is this tone shift too, I alluded to it at the start of the video, where maybe because the laws changed a bit, they're happy to do this. But the forest, I think, is a lot less gloomy now. It's a lot less thickety. It actually feels a lot like the Maguma jungle to me. In fact, some of these moments where they're running down these long, wide roads that are slightly curved, clearly made to be lanes for a meta event of some kind. As they're running down them, it feels like Dragon's Stand to me, like a lot like Dragon's Stand. Guild Wars 1's Echovald isn't actually that gorgeous a lot of the time, can I just say? It's very inconsistent. Some of it looks pretty crap. But then sometimes it's utterly gorgeous. Like, you'll get the camera in just the right place. And, like for example, here, this was something I was looking at in my tour just the other day, right before the stream. If you're looking for vistas like this, you know, with a really thickety, tangled, like, roof and the very gloomy backgrounds and the darkness, I don't think Guild Wars 2 really has you covered for this kind of aesthetic. I didn't see anything like that. They did see some moments where they looked up. There are some massive trees. It feels a lot like the whole big tree thing feels a lot like Bitterfrost did in Guild Wars 2. So if you really like that forest in Bitterfrost, then I think you got a lot to be really excited about. But it does feel very different to me. One of the big things I think is that Guild Wars 1 was so much more restrictive with your movement. They could hint at stuff like giant trees with cathedrals built in them and the orange lights leaking out of them and so on. But you can't go climb on the window and realize just how bad the texture is on it or whatever. In Guild Wars 2, you've got all this extra movement, so you don't see they're really doing stuff like that. So yeah, I think in very specific areas, it probably looks really good in Guild Wars 2, especially stuff with like the 4 Aspenwood areas, which we did go explore. I actually wonder if the meta has a lot to do with the 4 Aspenwood lore, where there was a super weapon getting built there in Guild Wars 1, and maybe, you know, the Jade Brotherhood are messing with that now in Guild Wars 2. That was all quite exciting. So there are these points of interest that look good, but the general vibe is quite different. As I say, much like Heart of Thorns, so if you guys like those maps or haven't had enough of those maps, then I think Echovald Wilds is going to be, you know, a super fun place to go to. And at least it's kind of a breath of the fresh air after we move now out of a whole desert expansion. I know we've actually technically been in icy areas, and Drizzlewood wasn't either, really. But it kind of depends how much you guys have played of those. It's always funny to me when I watch these streams, because they'll run around on their mount with all of the masteries unlocked, which means they get the stealth skill on their mount. And people are constantly saying, what's the skill? What's the skill? Is that an End of Dragons skill? And that stealth skill, that green mount skill, guys, that's not an End of Dragons thing. That's from the Iceberg Saga. It's from Drizzlewood. And I mean, that just immediately shows to me how much maybe audience experience and exploration of those maps was dropping off, because nobody even knows about it, and it's been in the game for well over a year now. And finally, just to round the video out, I mean, I don't need to go into our conversation about this, we've had enough, but they did confirm at the start of the stream that Tengu aren't playable. They straight out came out and said it. No, guys, we're not hiding it. No, it's not like the Griffin. Okay, well, they didn't go that far. They should have gone that far. But they said, sorry, guys, look, you're going to see a lot of cool Tengu here. And they are a big highlight of this region. And it was a fun part of the stream to see them. But they are not playable. We're not trying to tease you. That's what they said. And I think that was great. That's the candor that I like. I can really respect that they just get out and they nip that in the bud early. They don't let rampant speculation among people who are leading themselves astray go too far wrong. You know, guys, I was in the Tengu Believer. I think it would be good for the game, and I was talking about it and I wanted it. But after that first look a live stream this summer, if they're not marketing the game on it, guys, it's not going to be there. It's too big. It's a big, difficult thing to do. They're going to get their money's worth out of it. I don't think it's equivalent to the Griffin story at all. And I was so happy to see at the start of the stream, they just came out and said it. Brilliant. Hopefully the community settles somewhat. Though, again, on the official YouTube comments, I'm seeing people are still struggling coming to terms with that fact. Well, there you have it, guys. That's my thoughts on the Echovald Wilds stream. Hopefully you got a kick out of it and the footage in the background. If you missed the stream itself, hopefully you feel up to date and in the loop. And I'll be back very soon as there's some more news and fun things to talk about. Until then, if you really like the video, please feel free to show your support. It goes much appreciated. And until next time, I'll be in the comments. Take care now. Oh, if you're looking for more to watch, again, this morning, I ranked all of my favorite Guild Wars 2 lore mysteries and story beats that are still unfulfilled. There should be a link to that on screen right now.